Something is going on in the field of literature today. The digital age has had a great impact on books. Will the book survive? Or will the e-book take over? Or do we not need to think in terms of takeover, of usurpation, of one medium, the electronic medium, taking over the other, the book medium? Digitization also has had major consequences for reading. We have started to read differently, roughly since the 1990s. Only think of digital literary work, electronic literature, digital poetry, but also the digital has had its impact on so-called analog literature. Think of the surge in picture books and in graphic fiction. Reading has become much more visual and intermediate these days. In May 2012, I have organized a conference on these developments at Utrecht University with scholars, writers, artists and editors. The film you're going to watch is a compilation of speakers at that conference.
Hi, we have 4 students from the Honors College of Utrecht University. Our names are Anne, Barbara, Eline, and I'm Johanna. We saw most of the lectures from the conference and we made a 1-hour movie out of it that you're now going to watch. The parts of the lectures will be interspersed by introductions by us that will explain how all the different lectures fit into one film. We did this by grouping the lectures around different subjects. The subjects are a focus on materiality, a focus on iterability, the book in the digital age, e-book, digital reading, philologies of the book, and a look into the future. We hope you will enjoy the film.
We no longer need books. Yes, I said it. We have other ways of accessing and archiving information, other ways of reading, writing, and communicating. But just because we do not need books does not mean we do not want them. And indeed, we want them even more. And as much as I hate to say it, I agree with Jeff Gomez's snarky claim in his book, Print is Dead, that books are akin to the scented candles of the 21st century. For the majority of Americans, candles are no longer needed to provide light and warmth, yet they remain fixtures in middle-class homes to serve aesthetic functions. Books are going a similar path. And in the process, something really interesting is happening in literature. And that's where my interest lies. I'm in the English department, and I'm interested in looking at literature and reading literature, which I think is something we were just starting to do at the end of yesterday. So I want to examine what contemporary literature says about a culture that continually claims, as the dean just said, that the book is dying, and also at the aesthetic responses to this situation. So my central claim is this: the death of the book is good for literature, and for literary studies too. I come to this conclusion by reading literary works, both book-bound and digital, because I work on digital literature primarily, but today my talk is on print literature. So I look at literary works that fetishize the threat of the book's demise and take an avant-garde approach to challenging expectations by literally reinventing the book for readers of literature. Purposely figure the book as an aesthetic artifact rather than just a medium for information transmission.
For most people, books are just for reading. Book artists see more in the book. They focus on its materiality. They use books to make sculptures and other works of art. Doug Beube is one of those book artists. Beube will talk about the codex and why he likes to work with it. After that, he will give some examples of his own work. With all the focus on its materiality, it seems that the content will be lost. Does Beube ignore the content, or does he find a way to combine content and codex? Garrett Stewart will also give some examples of book art. He is a professor who studies book art, and does he only look at the materiality, or does he also see more behind it?
My work explores the book itself, a seemingly antiquated technology that is still purposeful in a digital age. The codex, which literally means a block of wood in Latin, is undeviating in its essential form. Its fixity is opposite to the capabilities of the computer to function on many planes simultaneously. Although the codex, compared to the computers, is undeniably limited in the capacity to store, perpetuate, generate, and recreate information, I accept these boundaries. I'm not referring to the paginated works of artist books. This is an entirely different category that has flourished with Photoshop, InDesign, and other software programs. Artist books remain an open-ended medium, as well as some inventive novels, for example, that Jessica spoke of yesterday. I apply quasi-software functions such as cutting, pasting, hidden text, and into an analog system. It doesn't work. It can't. The codex is stubborn as a technology. It is essentially inflexible. You read linearly from beginning to end and reflect upon what you've read. This is the built-in personality flaw. This is its elegance. This piece, City, why it took me 12 years to formulate, is I folded many of these books in 1989, 1990, and yet I had a prosthetic. And by prosthetic, it was an accessory. I actually had a piece of furniture that I wanted these to sit on. And that changed, and that's why sometimes it takes me years to figure out what I'm doing. So the books in this case, we might not be able to see what the titles are, but indeed, we're looking at a city. It's as if you're looking at, and especially if you're in Brooklyn, you see Manhattan, and you see all these different towers and all these architectural forms that are moving up into the sky. The large book in the back is a German book. The one in the front is a book on husbandry. We have novels, we have philosophy books, as if you would walk into a city, and this is what you would be reading. And this is what people within this urban environment would be seeing.
Around the World in 40 Days. You cut up Jules Verne in half and you play on the spatial temporal ironies of the book, or you digest the Reader's Digest by sawing it in half with a book that is itself sawn into a saw from a prestige outsized edition of a book on skyscrapers shaped like a vertical skyscraper, or the same artist, Robert Thaw again, the Reader's Digest turned into a digestible cake book where the binding is the frosting. Another of his works, I don't know who would have wanted that book, but a book on glasses through which you now see the world. All of this, right? A funny, witty metaphor for not what books used to give us and won't anymore, but what books and whatever is coming have in common. That is, the figurative nature of reading.
The sense of process is very much in what we're experiencing today with the phone book. 7 cities seek to end delivery of the phone book. This is the Toronto Star from 2 years ago. In 1993, I don't honestly remember if I was thinking about the end of the phone book, although it seemed inevitable. Here I took a book, I carved it, part of it, on the keeping the spine of the Brooklyn phone book, and then I crushed the pages and then I straightened them out, creating this hedgehog effect, and then put it into a bonsai container. So you could still read the book, which is a lot of my intentions with my work. Sometimes I want you just to look at it as a three-dimensional object. But however, many of the pieces I'm showing you today, I want the viewer or the reader to actually touch the book. There's still that relationship between the human body and the information. Why the phone book works so well is because the paper is so fragile. Other aspects of this same sort of perpetration of the book is I choose titles specifically. In this case, Inside Macintosh, which is a book about the Macintosh, and we're literally looking into it. When I was purely a photographer, I would have discussions with friends, and what we discussed was we just wanted to make interesting photographs. Well, it's not entirely true as a mixed media sculptor today. Not only do I want to make interesting visual books and interesting things to look at, but I certainly want the meaning to come through.
Book art is one way of addressing the materiality of the book. It seems that this discussion is getting more and more attention in the recent years. But is this just a new discussion? The fear of losing the book has been around for much longer. It was prominent in the age of mechanical reproduction, which was in the late 19th century. Literary and social critic and philosopher Walter Benjamin was one of the first to write an essay about the aura of the book in the age of mechanical reproduction. In the next section, we see a part of the lecture of Jacob Edmond. Edmond talks about the iterability of the book. He states that in a digital age, the book is no longer only marked by its materiality, as we've just seen in the lectures about book art, but also by its reproducibility and iterability. This iterability of the book has only been possible from the start of the age of mechanical reproduction.
So by highlighting the iterability of the book in some modern and contemporary examples, I want to contest the view that the reimagining of the book in the context of the new media of the modernist period and of our digital age take place only or primarily through a renewed stress on the book's materiality, affective engagements, or embodied or enfleshed existence. Instead, the book in the age of mechanical reproduction and in our digital age is marked as much by repeatability and iteration as by materiality and singularity, by ghostly afterlife as much as by physical presence. The rise of technologies of mechanical reproduction heightened attention to the book as copy, both in terms of the auratic materiality of the individual copy and as a reproduced non-original object.
Materiality and iterability are again not something that's only present nowadays. Both these things have been around for much longer. Edmond will, in his next section, give attention to the Russian samizdat literature. Russian samizdat literature was a key dissident activity across the Soviet bloc. In it, individuals reproduced censored publications by hand and passed them on from reader to reader. In this way, samizdat literature avoided censorship. One of the samizdat writers is Dmitry Prigov. Edmond will focus on his work as it is a clear example of the relation between text and copy.
The tension between the individual copy and mass reproduction is reframed and even collapsed in samizdat literature, the illegally circulated typescripts that created an entire world of literary and intellectual life in the late Soviet period. Samizdat texts were reproduced 4 or 5 copies at a time through the act of retyping and the use of carbon copy. Thus, the act of writing and publishing effectively fused. This special quality of samizdat is explored and exploited in the work of conceptual writer and artist Dmitry Prigov. So beginning in the 1970s, Prigov sought to investigate the relationship between text and copy and laboriously reproduced samizdat texts, which, in fact, because of their poor quality, became fetishized objects for members of the Soviet samizdat community. Prigov exploited the nature of the samizdat text to produce singular works in which the materiality of the book plays a key role. And at the same time, he stressed the relationship between the writer and copyist, between unique work and reproduction in samizdat book culture.